Yo, yo, yo. Yo, yo, yo. So when I say yo, yo, I want to hear it out here in the crowd. All right. Can I get a yo, yo, yo? What's up? This is Jay Mondaine of the X Factor Sports Podcast, season 6 finale here at Bogey's Windy City Pub here in Kansas City. How's everybody doing tonight? All right. We are in here live. I appreciate y'all for coming tonight. We have a great show for y'all tonight. All right. So obviously it's football season. So we're going to dive deep into the NFL. We're going to touch on college football playoff. We're also going to touch a little bit on the NBA as well. We got to do that. But this is going to be a heavy NFL episode for my football fans out there. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, get into these quick news, the layup lines, the beginning of the show. We're going to start with the NBA. Okay. So the big story in the NBA is Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat getting suspended for 7 games. What the NBA does, they call this conduct detrimental to the blanket statement for them to say, we don't want you playing basketball right now because you're a distraction, so we're going to suspend you for a significant amount of games and hurt your pockets. All right. So the reason they did this for Jimmy Butler is because he's unhappy. He's wanted to get a contract extension. He's also requested a trade because he's not happy there. So how does that work in the NBA? Is February 6th. So they have a little less than a month to get something figured out. He wants to go somewhere else. Pat Riley and the Heat don't want to let him go. So they're playing hardball. I always love the sport of basketball, but the business of sports is nasty. All right. It gets really nasty, rumors, all this stuff. Because teams are always trying to get over on the players and vice versa. So what's happening during this suspension? There's rumors out that the Phoenix Suns could trade Bradley Beal for Jimmy Butler, right? But on the flip side, Bradley Beal has a no trade clause. What does that mean? When you have a no trade clause, a team just can't up and let you go. You have to waive that no trade clause. And the way to get a player to do that on your team, again, the business of basketball is a nasty business. So they've benched Bradley Beal to make him uncomfortable, make him not want to play in Phoenix so he can waive this no trade clause and they can get what they want, get Jimmy Butler to Phoenix. So when it comes to the money side of it, Jimmy Butler's making $48 million and Bradley Beal's making $50 million, I think. So the money's pretty even. So that'll be a straight up trade. Plus, from a basketball standpoint, it makes sense because you have Jimmy Butler, who plays in a position that won't interrupt Devin Booker the way Bradley Beal is. Kevin Durant can play the stretch 4. All these things can work out from a basketball standpoint if the Phoenix Suns get Jimmy Butler. So I think they should make that happen. The Heat just don't want to let him go without a fight. So that's why you get this conduct detrimental to the team stuff, these fines, all these things. But that's what's happening in the NBA. Jimmy Butler won out of Miami. All right. Now over to college football. Okay. So we got the college football playoff starting back up tomorrow and Friday. Tomorrow's game, we got Notre Dame and Penn State. 2 good teams. Notre Dame has been playing great football since like October. I think they lost in week 2 to Northern Illinois. But Marcus Freeman's had them boys playing good ever since. And then Penn State on the other side. So this is going to be a great matchup. 2 good defensive teams. But the difference will be this. Notre Dame's not playing against a backup quarterback tomorrow. And then Penn State's not playing against a lower level Division I team like Boise State. We got 2 top tier teams, and I got Notre Dame winning this game. I got Notre Dame going to a national championship. Marcus Freeman, James Franklin's a great coach too, so it's good to see both of them make it this far. But Notre Dame, I think, beats Penn State in a close, hard-fought battle, goes to the final. And then on Friday, you got Ohio State. We got some Ohio State fans and some Notre Dame fans in the building. So they're both Bears fans. And then if these 2 teams meet up in the final, I want to be around both of them to see how this game goes. But Ohio State, they stumbled early in the year, lost to Michigan. It was an upsetting loss. But the way they've looked in this tournament, they look like the best team in America. The way they dismantled Tennessee in Columbus and then turn back around. And I have to apologize to Ohio State. I actually picked Oregon to win that game, and Oregon didn't show up at all. So kudos to Ohio State for winning that game, beating Oregon. I thought Dylan Gabriel would be the difference just because I feel like he's the better quarterback. Thought it would be a closer game. But Ohio State proved me and probably majority of people wrong winning that big game. Shout out to Ryan Day. So I got in this game against Texas, this is kind of a home game for Texas. The Cotton Bowl, it's in Dallas. There'll be a lot of Longhorn fans. But if I'm going off what I saw last week, Ohio State, the way they handled Oregon and the way Texas kind of skirted by Arizona State in that game, overtime win, I got to go with the team that's been playing the best football right now, and I got Ohio State beating Texas, getting to a national championship game. So that's who I think it'll be, Ohio State, Notre Dame in the national championship. We'll see what happens on January 20th for that. All right. So now we're going to shift gears. So we're going to get into some NFL talk, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about these Kansas City Chiefs. I know everybody's excited to hear about that, but so the Green Bay Packers in the 60s, the Miami Dolphins in the 70s, the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 70s, the 49ers in the 80s, the Cowboys in the 90s, the Patriots in the 2000s, right? They all have something in common. Throughout all the decades, all the history of the NFL, all these teams won back-to-back Super Bowls and did not make it to the third Super Bowl. They did not three-peat. That's what all these teams have in common. So the question I ask is, if the Kansas City Chiefs three-peat, will they be the best football team in the NFL history? Right? If they were the three-peat. You got all these other teams that have tried, and for whatever reason, they haven't been able to do it, whether it's coaches getting fired, coaches retiring, quarterbacks retiring, whether it's, I forgot to say the Denver Broncos in the 90s as well. They went back-to-back, and then John Elway retired. Teams not making it to the playoffs. Teams not making it back to the playoffs after they won back-to-back. So a lot of things have happened. Egos, locker room, all these things, trades, whatever. A lot of these things have happened for teams not to three-peat. So the question about the Chiefs being able to do it, there's a lot of things going in their favor. So a lot of things can work. Think about this. Number one, the record they have. They have the best record of any team that has ever won back-to-back Super Bowls and made it to the playoffs for the third run. 15-2. They get everybody's best shot, right? They have dealt with injuries. They've dealt with adding players to the team, losing players, all different types of things that have happened this season, and they still stand at 15-2. They get the bye week in an NFL where there's only one seed that gets it. Back in history, it used to be two teams. So you got to give them credit for that. And then Andy Reid. So this is something that's, I think, is underrated about it as a coach. A lot of professional coaches have this ego about themselves, right? Their ideologies. If it doesn't work, they're going to fall with the ship. Whatever they think should work, they're going to push down their players on the franchise. Look at Dan Campbell, for example. In Detroit last year, he probably lost them a trip to the Super Bowl because of going forward on fourth down, right? All these fourth and whatevers. And that's Dan Campbell's personality. And that could have been a detriment to them. The thing that Andy Reid doesn't get a lot of credit for is he doesn't have that ego. He allows the team to do whatever they need to win, okay? At the beginning of this dynasty, they were an offensive juggernaut. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, all of these things were happening. They were high-scoring offense. They've morphed into a defensive team. He's allowed Spags to take over games. He's allowed the defense to take over games, and he doesn't put his ego in the way. He's an offensive head coach, right? It's very easy for an offensive head coach to feel like they're the smartest person in the room, and he doesn't allow that to interfere with what it is he has going on. So that's another thing that the Kansas City Chiefs have in their favor. Also, situational football. When you get into the playoffs, right? The teams situational football going are usually the teams that win. Nobody can argue. All of these games the Chiefs have played this season have looked like they've been all situational football, and they seem to rise to the occasion every time when it comes to that. So no matter if it's blocking a field goal, no matter if it's they need to get a stop on third down, they need whatever it is they seem like they need to get, they've been able to get throughout this entire run, not just this year. And so because of that, I feel like if the Chiefs win this Super Bowl, that they will be the greatest team in NFL history. That's just how I feel about it. And this is the reason why I feel it this way, is because what we're dealing with in this day and age in NFL. Back then, a lot of teams didn't have to deal with players leaving. You can identify a player with a franchise. Terry Bradshaw got drafted by the Steelers, retired a Steeler, right? You go as far as Bart Starr. You go to Troy Aikman. Like, he won back-to-back Super Bowls with the Cowboys. He's a Dallas Cowboy. Like, nobody was moving around. Free agency wasn't that big of a thing back in the day. You know, the money, the salary caps, there was none of these things going on. The Chiefs have to deal with all of this free agency. They have to deal with all of the player movement, social media, all of these things going on in an offensive league, turn themselves into a defensive team, and are on the cusp of winning 3 Super Bowls. So y'all let me know what y'all think about that. If the Chiefs win this 3rd Super Bowl, do we put them at the top of the list as the greatest NFL teams of all time? Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We are on every Wednesday nights on YouTube and Rumble. And also, if you like to listen to podcasts, you can always check out all the audio platforms for the X Factor Sports Podcast. Now, staying in the NFL, we're going to go to the playoffs, okay? So we're going to put the bracket up for the NFL playoffs, and we're going to predict the teams who we think are going to get to the Super Bowl. If you want to hear who I think is going to win the Super Bowl, you got to check out Season 7, Episode 1, the premiere. That's when we'll get into who we think is going to win the Super Bowl. It'll come back just in time. But for this show, we got a special. We're going to dive right into the NFL playoffs starting this weekend, all right? And so we're going to get started in the NFC. You got the 7-2 matchup, the Packers and the Eagles, okay? Packers have to go to Philly. They end up getting a 7 seed because, I mean, they are literally and figuratively limping into the playoffs, unfortunately for the Packers. I mean, losing to the Vikings and to those Bears the last game of the season. So because of that, they get the 7 seed and Washington gets the 6, so they got to go to Philly. But also, unfortunately, they're dealing with a lot of injuries. They lose Christian Watson to an ACL. Their other wide receiver, Romeo Doubs, is not 100%. And then you got Jordan Love, the quarterback, who is dealing with an elbow injury as well, so he's not 100%. Going into Philly is going to be a tall task. Yes, Jalen Hurts is going to play. He's been in concussion protocol, but all he needed to do was practice today. He showed up at practice, so they're going to be good to go. And I just feel like with Green Bay going into Philly against that defense, they're going to stack 8 in the box, and they're going to force Jordan Love to throw the ball 30, 40 times. They're not going to let the running backs beat them, and I don't think he has enough weapons to win in Philly, so I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles to advance in that game. You got a young Jaden Daniels in Washington, and then you got Tampa Bay Bucks. Tampa Bay hosting another playoff game. I'm going with the Bucks at home. Again, you got Jaden Daniels, good quarterback, but it's his first playoff, and the playoffs are different. I know he's played in big games, but the physicality is higher, is more ramped up in the playoffs. The officiating is going to be a little bit looser, and I think the tougher team wins this game, and I think the Bucks are the tougher team. So I'm going with Baker Mayfield, who has experience winning playoff games, and the Tampa Bay Bucks are not that far removed from being Super Bowl champs, either hosting a playoff game. So I'm going with the Bucks. At the 4-5 matchup, this one is interesting. The NFC North was so good this year that a 14-2 team has to go on the road as a 5 seed and play in a wild card game in LA. So Hopefully the game is still played. They may postpone it, prayers to the people dealing with wildfires in LA. But if the game is played, it will be at SoFi. Vikings, Rams. And I'm going to tell you this. In this game, the quarterbacks make the difference for me. To me, Matthew Stafford's the best quarterback in the NFC. He's the only quarterback in the NFC that has a Super Bowl. He's proven. He's played longer than everybody else. He has the experience. The Rams defense has gotten better and better every week, and they've beat the Rams this year already. They've beat the Vikings already. The Rams have. So I'm going to go with the Rams at home. This is kind of an upset. Even though it's a 4-5 matchup, the Vikings being a higher seed, I'm taking the Vikings to win this game. All right. In the AFC on the other side, you got the 2-7 matchup, the Broncos. The Broncos, if you go back to the beginning of the season, I talked about the Broncos having a good year. I said, don't be surprised if the Broncos play well because of getting coach. All right. So I knew that they would play well. Sean Payton, Bo Nix, and unfortunately, their reward for playing so well, they get to go to Orchard Park and play against Josh Allen, who probably will win MVP in the Buffalo Bills. So it'll be an interesting game. Again, this is a very young team like Washington. They don't have the playoff experience going against a team that's battle-tested. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills to win this game. I think Josh Allen comes out and plays a great game. The defense for the Broncos will show up. Will play in that hostile environment. So I got to go with the team with experience, and Buffalo wins 0 at home this season. So they have all of the home field advantage you want. They beat the 2 top teams in the NFL already this year. Got to go with the Bills at home. In the 3-6 matchup, another AFC North, Steelers at Ravens. Again, another team that fell apart end of the year. Lost 4 straight games, and they're just spiraling out of control. So this was an easy one for me. The Ravens advance, get past the Steelers. And with Lamar and Derrick Henry playing, I don't see how they lose to this Steelers team. I'm going to pick the team that's won 4 straight games, a team that's lost 4 straight games coming into the playoffs. And so I got the Baltimore Ravens winning that one. And then the 4-5 matchup. So the Houston Texans, they earned a spot at home, and this could be because of the division they're in. They're in one of the weakest divisions in football, the AFC South, but they won the division. Somebody has to win it, right? So they get the home field advantage, but I think the Chargers are going to be too much for them. Great running game, great defense. Jim Harbaugh, great in situations. I think the Chargers go in this first round, wild card weekend. This will be the only road team that wins their first playoff game. So I'm going to go ahead and just beating the Texans. The way the Texans played on Christmas, they just been spiraling out of control. They lost Tank Dell. That Christmas game against the Ravens, they got blown out. The only thing that was good in Houston was Beyonce halftime. That game was crazy. So I don't know if they're going to come out to play for this game. So I'm going with the Chargers. All right. Then we move to the divisional round. Divisional round for me is the best round of football. It's the best teams in the league playing all weekend. All right. You got the number 1 seeds. They get to play against the other best teams in the NFL. So I love divisional round. I got Tampa Bay going to Philly in the NFC. This is a rematch from last year. Philly had to go to Tampa. They ended up losing that game in revenge. All right. As long as Jalen Hurts is healthy, I think Philly gets their revenge. Into Philly mid-January. They got to leave Florida to go play up there at the Link. I don't see any luck for them up there in Tampa. They got to play against a great defense and Saquon Barkley in that cold weather. I think the Eagles take this one at home and advance to an NFC title game. Then we got another rematch. We got the Rams and Detroit. It seemed like ever since Jared Goff left the Rams and Matthew Stafford left times a year. I don't know why. It seemed like they always play each other. So in this game, I got the Rams going to Detroit, but Detroit will be too much. They got a much-needed rest. They didn't have a bye week since week 5, which was in like October. And they played all the way through to week 18. They had 17 guys going IR on defense, just a war of attrition. But you can tell by the toughness they have in this team. In this game, they were playing, they didn't have to play for anything. Dan Campbell decided to play his guys. They won the game. They won a huge win in the North last week. I think the Detroit Lions are ready to win this game. They get a break, much needed. I think they beat Rams in Detroit. So I got them going to the NFC Championship game against Philly. In the AFC, Baltimore goes to Buffalo. This might actually be the best matchup of the playoffs. Two MVP candidates, Lamar, Josh Allen. They played earlier in the season. I think both teams have gotten better since. And they're playing to go to the AFC Championship game. The Ravens won this game earlier this year, and their defense wasn't as good. The defense is better. I think they go into Orchard Park and pull off the upset. I got the Baltimore Ravens beating the Buffalo Bills. This is why you get Derrick Henry. They didn't get Derrick Henry for the regular season. All right, Lamar Jackson does good enough in the regular season. I think you get a running back like Derrick Henry to go into hostile environments, into cold climate, and take time of possession off the ball. So Josh Allen has to sit in the cold and watch them run the ball or run the clock. Time of possession. So I'm going with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry to go into Orchard Park, Buffalo, get to an AFC title game. And then the last game, we get to the AFC title, Chargers and Chiefs. Two teams familiar with each other. They play each other all the time, twice a year. Chiefs are just the better team. They're playing at home, resting since after that Christmas game, right? They've had this bye. They didn't even show up in Denver, need to. So they did the Broncos a solid by getting them in, but they're veterans. So you want to see young teams play in those games. They need the momentum. Veteran teams can rest, figure it out. It'll be here. Again, another LA team having to come to the cold. We already know what it's like in Kansas City in January. Ask the Miami Dolphins. So I feel like the Chiefs win this game going away. A rested Chiefs team against the Chargers team. I think they get it done. And then we got championship weekend. NFC, the Eagles and the Lions. Now, can we trust either of these coaches in big games? Can we trust Nick Sirianni? Can we trust Dan Campbell in big games, right? We talked about earlier in the monologue about these coaches and their identities, and they let their egos get in the way, how they think they should win these games. And for me, even though this game is in Detroit, I feel like all of these players on IR, it's going to catch up to them at some point. And I think in this NFC title game, this is where it catches up to them. They would have played 22 weeks of football. And in the last 8 weeks of football, they got their backups in. And now you're playing against arguably the best roster in the NFL, in the Philadelphia Eagles. I just don't think they'll have enough. I think that, unfortunately, the Lions, because of their injuries on the defensive side of the ball, it's going to hurt them when you got to play against A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley. You got to go against all these guys. Jalen Hurts is a threat running and throwing the ball. I think it'll be too much. I don't know how the coaches are going to call the games, but I think if the Eagles play their game in Detroit and they don't have to play in the cold, finally they get to go somewhere and be indoors, I think the Eagles win this game. I think they have the momentum coming with the wild card. I think Saquon and Jahmyr Gibbs will be the difference. So who outplays who? I think that'll be the answer. And I give the nod to Saquon Barkley. So I'm going with the Eagles making it to the Super Bowl and beating the Detroit Lions. On the other side, Ravens, Chiefs. Revenge on so many levels, right? The Ravens came here, lost week 1. You know, maybe Isaiah Likely will wear white shoes this game. All right. So if he step out of bounds, you can't see it. And then also the Chiefs going to Baltimore in the AFC Championship game last year and coming out with a win. But now it's in Arrowhead, and this game is going to be close. All right. Is Zay Flowers going to be healthy, right? Because he hurt himself in the last game. Will they use Derrick Henry more in this game? Because they didn't use him that much in week 1. So for me, this game is going to come down to one score. These teams are both good, top tier It always comes down to one score when you get to Baltimore Chiefs AFC title games. Kansas City Chiefs to get back to the Super Bowl. All right. But here's the reason why, okay? Situational football. We talked about this at the beginning. The situational football, the mistakes that the other teams make, the Chiefs just don't seem to make in the playoffs, right? With the Ravens, there's always an untimely penalty. There's always a missed play. There's always something. There's always some sort of flag or something that happens every time. You don't see that on the Chiefs side. Andy Reid has these guys playing with confidence. I keep hitting my mic. They keep letting these guys, he lets these guys play with confidence. You just don't see the miscues. Patrick Mahomes plays cool, calm, and collected. They are big on third down, and that's what that game will come to. Who wins the battle with third down? Who wins the situational game? Andy Reid seems to have the edge, not only on John Harbaugh, but any of his other disciples. If y'all didn't know, John Harbaugh is an Andy Reid disciple, guy that comes from his coaching tree. He just always seems to have the upper hand on his guys. And this will be a game that comes down to situational football. And the Chiefs always seem to find a way to get the upper hand when it comes to that. So for that reason, I got the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 59. And we'll see if they can three-peat or not, all right? If you are interested in who I think will win the Super Bowl, remember, you got to tune in next season to episode of the X Factor Sports Podcast, and I will give y'all my take on who I think will win Super Bowl 59. Okay. So how we doing out there, y'all? Good? No, it's pretty long-winded, but I wanted to get that out. So because y'all been so patient, we got some fan participation going on, all right? This is the fan participation segment of the show. I'm going to ask a question, and if you get the question right, you win a free X Factor Sports Podcast fitted cap, all right? We got a great one over there for y'all. So this is a pretty simple question. You can use your phones. The way it works, the first person to get the answer right wins the hat. Miss D's going to point out whoever it is that gets the answer. I'll hand over the mic to y'all. Y'all get to announce who y'all think the answer to the question is, and the winner gets a hat, all right? So the question is, outside of the NBA, which sports franchise was the last franchise to win 3 consecutive championships? Outside of the NBA. Oh, we got a hand up. We got one hand up. Outside of the NBA, which sports franchise was the last franchise to win 3 consecutive championships? We got an answer. We got one? Let's see what we got.
Sorry, Jay, I was eating a pretzel there.
No worries, no worries.
So it's hockey. Is that fair?
I'm waiting on you to give me your answer.
See, I just was going to name the league.
Nope. Which franchise?
No, it's not the Kings. I'm handing it back. Jay, I apologize.
All right, no worries. What we got? We had that hand up before that hand was up. Okay, hold on. We got a hand up back here. Outside of the NBA. Don had his hand up first? All right. Outside of the NBA. Who we got? That is incorrect. It is not the Edmonton Oilers. Outside of the NBA, which sports franchise was the last franchise to win 3 consecutive championships? No, you cannot answer. Y'all can look on y'all phones. Y'all have access to the Google machine, actually. So whoever's the first one to get it wins. Oh, we got a hand up over here. All right, let's see what we got.
What do you have?
That is incorrect. The last team to do it. Who's the last team to do it? All right.
What do you have? I'll answer for you.
All right.
Montreal Canadiens.
That is incorrect. The last, I'll read it again. Outside of the NBA, which sports franchise was the last franchise to win 3 consecutive championships? All right, Jack's got his hand up back there. He's had his hand up. Let's see what he got. It is the New York Yankees. That is correct. The New York Yankees are the last franchise to win 3 consecutive championships. They won it in 98, 99, and 2000. The LA Lakers were the last NBA franchise. They won it in 2001, 02. So congrats to Jack. Go ahead and get him one of the gray fitted. Congrats on winning that. Appreciate you for tuning in. Yes, sir. That's you. All right. So, yes. So, again, this episode, we're talking about history being made, and we're talking about three-peats. The New York Yankees were the last sports franchise outside of the NBA. I felt like the NBA would have been easy. It was from 1998 to 2000. All right. So, yep. So, I appreciate that. All right, cool. So, again, this part of the show, we always give some fans, if they have questions, anything about the NFL, college football, any questions that come out, anything y'all want to ask, we can get those answered. We can do 1 or 2 of those, and then we'll close this thing out. So if y'all have any, don't worry about it. But I always try to see if fans want to interact. We got one question over here.
Jay, if the voting was today, not end of the season, today,
Okay.
who gets Rookie of the Year? Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix?
That's a good question. Ended today, January 8th, 2025. Who would win NFL Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix? I would honestly have to say Bo Nix. And here's why. This is why I would say Bo Nix. They were not projected to do well at all, especially after what happened with Russell Wilson. They didn't think that the Broncos had anything to do this year. They thought they would be at the bottom of the division with the Raiders. And to our surprise, in a tough division in the AFC, they managed to get to the playoffs. Not only did they make the playoffs, they won 10 games with a rookie who played well. Now, there would be arguments for Jaden Daniels because he had more spectacular games. The numbers statistically may say him. But when I think of Rookie of the Year, I think of what were the expectations for that rookie going in and where they ended up. Jaden Daniels is a Heisman Trophy winner. He's a number 2 overall pick. For him, there weren't very many expectations for Bo Nix. And for him to lead his team to a playoff, you got to give kudos to that. So I would say Bo Nix will get Rookie of the Year if it was my vote. All right. We got one over here. Hold on. We'll go right here and then to the back.
So kind of piggybacking off that one, who do you think would get Coach of the Year in the NFL?
Coach of the Year. Okay. NFL Coach of the Year. Y'all can hear me out here? So NFL Coach of the Year. Ooh, that's a good one. For the Coach of the Year, I usually like giving division winners Coach of the Year. Like DeMeco Ryan should have probably won it last year for the Texans. I think Kevin Stefanski got it though. This year they have played better. They actually have a better record. So I actually wouldn't be upset if DeMeco Ryans got it. So I kind of talked myself into that answer out loud, to be honest, because I was thinking about it. Last year, he should have won it. DeMeco Ryans, the head coach of the Texans. They've actually won more games this year, won their division again. They also made history, too. This is the first time in NFL history a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach won their division back-to-back. It's never happened with a coach, a first-year coach and a first-year quarterback winning back-to-back division titles. So to answer your question, yes, I will give DeMeco Ryans Coach of the Year. All right, we got one more.
Since we're at Bogey's Windy City, a.k.a. the Chicago Bears bar here in Kansas City.
The Bears Den, baby. Let's go.
Appropriate to ask a Bears question.
Sure.
Who will be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears?
Who will be the next head coach? Okay.
That's a good question.
So I need the mic for this. I need the mic for this one. All right. The next head coach of the Chicago Bears. All right, that's a great question. They are interviewing Pete Carroll. They didn't get permission to interview Mike McCarthy, which I'm fine with. I don't need Mike McCarthy. But they got permission to interview Pete Carroll. And I've been juggling with this all year. All my Bears family know we talk about this. Should we get an offensive coach? Should we get a defensive guy? This and that. For me personally, I care more about the culture. The franchise, we need to rebuild and have some sort of identity for our franchise. So this will be a two-answer question to your question. Number one, I say Pete Carroll because Pete Carroll will bring stability to the franchise. They will allow him to build up morale and build up an identity for our team. And he's been around long enough that he'll be able to get an offensive coordinator to fit Caleb's style of play. He knows about the game. He understands young players. I think he'll be able to do that. He was able to go to Seattle and do that with that young team. He coached at USC. He was able to do it there. There's a connection there with him and Caleb. So I think he can make it work. But I'm going to do a spin on y'all real quick. If the Pittsburgh Steelers lose in round one, Mike Tomlin should walk away and come get this Bears coaching job. All right? Mike Tomlin, as a Bears fan, and think about this. They've been to the playoffs 8 straight years and have not won a playoff game since 2016, 2017. If they lose, if they're one and done again, their fan base is going to be sour. They already talking about Mike Tomlin. Is he the right guy? Maybe he needs a change of scenery, okay? So why not come to Chicago? You got a quarterback in place. You got a city that's starving for a winner, and he's somebody that can build a culture. And the players love playing for him. And he's proved that time again he can make it to the playoffs. It doesn't matter who you roll out there. Roethlisberger on one leg can be any quarterback you can find. He's juggling 2 quarterbacks now. He still makes the playoffs in the AFC. So that's going to be my little twist. If we can't get Pete Carroll, if I'm shaking this up and I'm messing up everybody's plan, if the Steelers don't win, Mike Tomlin, come on over and interview for this Bears job, baby. We'll take you. All right. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you, everybody, for the fan participation. And we're going to end it with our 2-minute warning, the best part of the show. All right, we're going to close this thing out, close out season 6. So for the 2-minute warning, we're going to talk about 2, not 3. All right, the matter of 2, not 3. What do you mean by that? So there's a story of a shoe salesman back in the day, and some of you probably heard this story. There's a shoe salesman. He was very successful back in the day. A journalist came and asked him, how did you get so successful? And he said, I used the principle of 2, not 3. What does that mean? So if a woman, let's say, comes into my shoe store and they're looking at a pair of shoes, and then they want to look at another pair and they're trying to decide. If she asks me for a third pair, instead of giving her the third pair, I say, which of these 2 pair do you want me to take away? Which one of these 2 do you want me to take away? Right? So 2, not 3. What he learned was if you give somebody 3, they choose none. Choose 1. Use the power of 2, not 3. Okay, so how does that relate to life? If you give somebody too many choices, they can be overwhelmed. Different types of decisions. You know, we can use our life as an example. Fellas, what's the one thing that happens in our house? Babe, what you want for dinner? Right? That's the question everybody gets, right? Every night, we got to figure out what's for dinner. If we give them 3, 4, or 5 options, we ain't getting nothing for dinner. Right? So if we use 2, not 3, if we get to that third option and say, all right, let's take which option do you want to take out? And then we go one or the other, all right? But on a serious note, think about that in life. When you have options, when you have decisions to make, and it gets to that third or fourth option, think about the one you want to take away. And that way, it narrows it down to 2, whether it's college choices, whether it's career choices, buying a house, any types of decisions. Use the theory of 2, not 3, and that'll make your decision-making a lot easier, a lot more efficient. You don't feel as overwhelmed trying to make multiple choices. You've narrowed it down to 2. So that's kind of how I feel about it, using that theory of 2, not 3, and it'll make sure that your decision-making process is better. Cool. I appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight to the X Factor Sports Podcast Season 6 finale. You can catch us on Wednesdays at YouTube and Rumble, and always all of the audio platforms. You can catch all 6 seasons of the X Factor Sports Podcast. Catch up to where we were, to where we'll see y'all in Season 7 of the X Factor Sports Podcast. If you like the merch, you can always check out at the X Factor Sports store online. You can scan the QR code at the bottom for my YouTube watchers. And you can also check us out here if you're live. We got merchandise here, hats, sweatshirts, hoodies. You can always check out the store, or you can hit me up directly, DM, let me know your size. We get all shirt sizes, colors, whatever you need. Again, this is Jay Mondaine signing off. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the X Factor Sports Podcast all season. I want to thank Miss D for always being there, showing up, making this thing work. Couldn't do it without her. Love her to death. I want to thank her for that. And everybody else, I appreciate y'all. Have a good night. Stay safe. We are out of here. Peace.